So hello friends, I am Neeraj. Hope you are doing great. So in the previous session we talked about props, and in this session we will be talking about states, because props and states are fundamentally very important for any React.js and React Native application, and literally without this, so it is very much difficult to create a richer UI, okay, or interactive UI. So let us try to understand it. So state variables are also a kind of, you can think of it, say it like a special kind of variables with something interesting and something additionally attached to it. So like every variable, a state variable is also available only inside the component where it is defined. So for example, say you defined a state variable inside one component, so you cannot access it directly in other component, okay. And secondly, when there is any change in the state variable, so the component where it was declared and defined, so that component gets re-rendered. So these are the two things, and this is how we can create a interactive and like in the web development, we make single page applications. So this is a, you can think of it like important mechanism behind it. So without wasting much time, so let us try to understand it. And by the way, like we will create a new component to understand the state, and let us try to write it first, and we will see that. So let's call it, let's say, balance component. So for example, say you are building an application for a banking application, so where user can see his balance, and so let us try to create it. So let's go with arrow function, and like this, and here we will return something. So return, and we will start returning the view, and inside this view we will have a text component, and there we can write the balance, or let us call it user balance, okay, like this. And let us also do something like the whole idea. Let us try to save it, and now it's time to add this component in our application. So we will go with balance component. So okay, so user balance is visible. So let me try to write it first, and we can understand it clearly. So we will try to have a button, and so button is having a title property, title prop, and we can pass it like increment, a plus sign, and likewise we will have a decrement button, decrement. So the idea here is like whenever user clicks on increment button like this, so it is pressable. So and whenever user clicks on increment button, the balance, the initial balance should be incremented by 1, and when user clicks on decrement button, the balance, whatever the user balance is, that should be decremented by 1. So all we have to do this, let us create a variable. So let balance equals is initialized to 0, initial balance as 0, and let us try to render it here. So balance, and right now, yes, our user balance is 0, and the idea is like whenever user clicks on increment, it should be updated, the user balance should be incremented by 1, but nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. So the reason behind is that this is a plain simple variable, and we are not able to change it, okay, so properly. So let us try to have a, so there by the way, like a button component is having a on press event. So it takes we can pass it, let's say we will create a function to increment, and let us try to const increment equals, we'll go with arrow function like this, and here even though like let's try to balance plus equal 1, and if we try to click on the increment button, again nothing is happening. The reason behind is that this is a plain simple variable and not a state variable, and if we change it to a state variable, then let us try to see that. So in order to use a state variable, we have to go with a let's const, and let me write it first. So in order to use a state variable, we have to use a use state hook from React, and we can initialize it, we can pass the initial value. So let us try to pass it 0, and this use state hook returns two things. One is the name of the variable, so one should be the name of the variable, so let us call it balance, and secondly it returns a function through which this variable can be reset. So however you can write it anything, but it is a better convention to have a you can think of it as a setter method, to have it to start with a set and then the name of the variable in camel case. So let's save it, and we have to change it here a little things. So we will define a new variable, and we will, whenever the increment our increment function is called, so we will collect the initial value from balance or the present value from balance, and we will increment it to 1. Okay, and now all we have to do is we have to trigger the set balance function, and we can pass this new balance to our set balance, right? So now let us try to see if what is happening. So now if we click on increment, yes, it is perfectly fine. So our balance is getting updated. And similarly, we can also create a decrement function. So let us rename it to decrement, and new balance should be the current balance minus 1, and we can just copy it out, and we can have a on press event here, and we can pass the decrement. Let's save it. Now increment it, decrement it, so perfect. So everything is running fine. So we are able to increment increment the balance, and we are also able to decrement the balance. So, and by the way, like whenever we are able to change the state variable, and as explained earlier, so when there is any change in the state variable, so that component gets re-rendered. So this is how we can make application more interactive. And in the web development also, you might have seen like on pressing of something, on pressing of a button, or some hover effect and other effects, so we can change the overall UI without reloading the page. Okay, so this is how we can use the state, and this is the, I mean, just try to understand the overall thing. And this, by the way, this state variable we declared, this balance variable, if we try to access this variable outside of this component, so it will raise an error. And however, we can have some, there are some mechanism to make a global state kind of things, but that is an advanced topic, like with using Redux or a context API. So we can achieve that. So but those are the advanced topics, and we will see that in some other time. So I think like we covered the state about, and if you have any query about that, so please do let me know, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. So till then, take care and happy coding.